Imagine this, 41 acres of waterfront property along Lake River in Ridgefield, Washington. For decades, this land was a toxic creosote site. The cleanup took 30 years and cost $90 million. And now that it's finally clean, the question isn't whether something will be built here, it's what. A Portland-based developer has plans for over 250 apartments, a 58-room hotel, commercial buildings, and more. The Port of Ridgefield says it'll bring 350 jobs and fund a brand new waterfront park. But when residents heard the full scope of what's coming, 60 to 70 people packed a city council meeting in April, and most of them weren't there to cheer. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. Clark County just voted 3-2 to approve a land use map that can convert over 500 acres of Ridgefield farmland for development. The city itself is planning for its population to nearly double in the next 20 years. The decisions being made right now will shape this community for generations to come. Today, I'm going to break down everything you need to know. The county's rezoning, the city's growth plan, the waterfront development, the renderings, what residents are saying, and how you can make your voice heard. Because this matters, whether you've lived in Ridgefield your whole life or you're thinking about moving here. Hey everyone, I'm Webb and this is Living in the PNW on YouTube. On this channel, I do deep dives into what's happening in the communities of the Pacific Northwest, especially right here in my hometown of Ridgefield in Clark County, Washington. If you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing so you don't miss what's next. To understand what's happening on the Ridgefield waterfront, you need to understand the bigger picture first, because everything flows downhill from a decision the Clark County Council made on April 27th and 28th of this year. Under Washington's Growth Management Act, every county has to update its comprehensive plan, basically a 20-year roadmap for how and where the county grows. Clark County was supposed to finish this by the end of 2025. They missed that deadline. Their Growth Management Hearings Board has now ordered them to get this done by July 31st of 2026. Here's the scale we're talking about. Clark County is projected to add 190,000 new residents and need over 100,000 new housing units by 2045. The county council was looking at 3 alternatives. Alternative 1 was essentially a no action plan, keep the existing boundaries, no major changes. Alternative 3 was a modified approach with less expansion. But the one that won, Alternative 2, is the growth-oriented option. It expands the urban growth boundaries for Battleground, Camas, La Center, Ridgefield, Yacolt, and Vancouver. The vote on this was 3-2. Councilors Glenn Young, Michelle Belcote, and Little voted yes. Councilors Will Fuentes and Chair Sue Marshall voted no. Councilor Fuentes posted publicly after the vote saying, and I'm quoting here, "I voted no on preferred alternative 2. The data is clear. Cities like Ridgefield and La Center already have enough land within their existing boundaries to meet growth over the next 20 years. This decision moves us towards more sprawl, higher infrastructure costs, and the loss of agricultural land." For Ridgefield specifically, this vote means the city's proposed urban growth area expansion could affect up to 519 acres of land currently designated as agricultural. Now, it's worth noting, this isn't final yet. This vote selected the preferred alternative. The final plan still has to go through public hearings and official adoption, and the court-ordered deadline is July 31st. Now let's zoom into the city level. Ridgefield has been working through its own comprehensive plan update called Envision Ridgefield 2045, and the growth numbers are significant. The state requires Ridgefield to plan for over 10,000 additional people, nearly 6,000 new housing units, and more than 8,000 new jobs. For a city that currently has about 14,000 to 15,000 people, we're essentially talking about Ridgefield doubling in size over the next 2 decades. All right, now we get to the heart of it, the Ridgefield waterfront. The Port of Ridgefield owns roughly 41 acres of waterfront property along Lake River. This site was home to Pacific Wood Treating Company, which left behind serious creosote contamination in the soil. Since the mid-1990s, the port has spent approximately $90 million cleaning it up in partnership with the Washington Department of Ecology. So after 3 decades and $90 million, the port is pivoting from cleanup to redevelopment. In November 2024, the port signed an agreement with the Palindrome Properties group, a Portland-based development firm with 25 years of mixed-use project experience. Here's what a preliminary site plan includes: a 174-unit apartment building, 82 additional apartment units above 2 retail buildings, so that's 256 total apartment units, a 58-room boutique hotel, office and commercial buildings, including a new port headquarters, light industrial buildings for maker spaces and jobs, a 16-site van camping area, and a potential future phase with up to 42 single-family homes south and east of Carty Lake. The port estimates the completed development will create approximately 350 full-time jobs. Phase 1 groundbreaking is targeted for 2027. Now here's the piece that almost everyone agrees is a good thing. The plan includes an 8 to 9 acre waterfront park stretching 1,500 feet along Lake River. The City Council unanimously approved the park master plan in October of 2024. The park has 2 distinct zones. The active zone on the south side, closer to the motorized boat launch, would feature flexible event space, restrooms, rooms, enhanced beach access, an inclusive play area, and a hand-launched point for kayaks. The passive zone on the north end, closer to the Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge, would have open lawns, picnic shelters, trails, an art walk, and accessible overlooks to the water. And here's the critical detail. Palindrome is funding the park. The Waterfront Park is part of the development deal, which raises the question a lot of residents are asking: can we have the park without all the other development? Back in 2022, the port surveyed residents and received between 1,300 to 1,500 responses, roughly 10% of the city's population at the time. It was a voluntary survey, not a scientific random sample poll, but it's the largest community input effort the port has done. The top priorities that came back were clear: public access to the river, boating, kayaking, swimming was number one. And here's where the tension starts. That survey data strongly supports the park and river access, but it does not specifically address the scale of commercial and residential development. On April 23rd, 2026, somewhere between 60 and 70 people showed up to the Ridgefield City Council meeting. More than 20 people spoke during public comment, and the overwhelming majority expressed concerns about the waterfront project. The concerns fall into several categories, and they're all legitimate questions that deserve real answers. The sheer scope: a hotel, 256 apartments, commercial buildings, feels outsized for a community of 14 to 15,000 people. Residents worry this changes the fundamental character of the town they chose to live in. The boaters and the fishers. The existing boat launch on Mill Street has 2 cement ramps with a center launch float, a day use dock, and parking. It's one of the only public access points to Lake River. The parking situation is already a problem. Spaces aren't clearly defined, boaters park at angles, and capacity is limited. Under the new plan, this boat launch will essentially be surrounded by new development. Where do the 20-foot boat trailers go when you've got a hotel and 250 plus apartments generating their own parking demand? Environmental impact. The waterfront sits right next to the Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge. Residents pointed out that the city literally just held a lights out proclamation signed by Mayor Matt Cole himself, encouraging people to reduce bright outdoor lights at night to support bird migration. And now there could be a lit hotel and apartment complex right next to the refuge. Additional vehicle load from hundreds of new residents, hotel guests, and commercial visitors on roads that are already strained. Travis Goodwin called for greater financial transparency and an independent review before allowing the project to move forward. I want to be really clear about something. From what I've seen and heard, the community is not anti-development. People support the park overwhelmingly. They want river access, trails, kayak launches. What they don't want is for their waterfront to become a revenue-generating district that pushes out the fishers, the boaters, and the families who use it today. And here's the tension. The port says the development funds the park. Without Palindrome's investment, does the park happen at all? Is the 8-acre waterfront park only possible because a developer is putting in apartments in a hotel? That's a genuine question, and it's one the port needs to answer clearly. Here's something really important that a lot of people don't realize. The Port of Ridgefield is an independent taxing district. It is not the same as the city. It has its own elected board of commissioners. The city council does not control the port's decisions. City manager Steve Stewart added that the city cannot stop development that complies with existing zoning. And this is key: the city is not powerless. The city controls zoning. The waterfront is designated as waterfront mixed use, which defines what can be built and under what standards. It's also important, no formal development application has been submitted yet. After the April 23rd meeting, the city issued an official response acknowledging the concerns and clarifying its role. This city statement directed residents to take their waterfront advocacy directly to the port. So if you care about this, and you should, the Port Commission is where your voice needs to go. This is the most important part of the video because none of this is final yet. There are real, concrete ways to make your voice heard. Some key dates and deadlines to keep note of: July 31st, 2026, the Growth Management Hearings Board's court-ordered deadline for Clark County to complete its comprehensive plan. 2027, this is the target year for Phase 1 groundbreaking on the waterfront development. Between now and then, the formal development application, permitting, and design review process will unfold. Where can you show up? Port of Ridgefield Commission meetings. This is the single most important place to direct your feedback on the waterfront development. The port owns the property and controls the deal with Palindrome. Ridgefield City Council meetings. The city controls zoning and permitting. When a formal development application is submitted, the city's review process kicks in. Your input during this process matters. The county's comprehensive plan still needs final adoption. If you have concerns about the 519 acres of agricultural land being open for development, this is your window. Look, Ridgefield is growing, that's not a question. The county has approved the land use map. The city is planning for over 10,000 new people. The waterfront is going to be developed. The question is how and whether the community's voice is part of that process. Personally, I think this waterfront has incredible incredible potential. An 8-acre park along Lake River with trails, kayak access, event space, and overlooks near the wildlife refuge. That's the kind of community asset that could define Ridgefield for the next 50 years. But it has to be done right. The boaters, the fishers, the families who have been using that waterfront, they can't be an afterthought. The environmental impact near the wildlife refuge has to be taken seriously, and the community deserves full transparency on the financial details of this deal. The good news is that we're still early. No formal application has been filed. The plans are still conceptual. Your input right now at Port Commission meetings, City Council meetings, public hearings, that's what shapes the outcome. Don't wait until the concrete is poured to wish you'd spoken up. I'm going to keep covering this as it develops. If you want to stay informed, make sure to like and subscribe to Living in the PNW for more content like this. I also have a quarterly podcast with Mayor Cole where we will deep dive on all these topics. I'll link that in the description. If you or anyone you know needs help with a home loan in this area, I'm here to help. Reach out anytime. Details are in the description. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.